Welcome. Welcome to Sharing the Three Principles with Jim Beck. This is your host and your friend, Karan Tani. I want to welcome you to episode 3, Sharing Thoughts with Jim Beck. So, Jim has come here today to share something wonderful, something special, and that is thought. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming here and for being here with your beautiful presence. I'm highly grateful to you. Thank you very much. And here we go with honor and pleasure. Let's welcome Jim back. Hello, Jim. Welcome.
Hi, Curran. Thanks so much. I also want to thank everybody in the room. I know you just had a thank you. Now you get two. It's your lucky day. Bask in it. I'm so pleased to have you here, and the way that you bring your presence to these meetings is so valuable. Thought. Normally, it seems to me that in the 3P community, thought comes first. I don't know why, but when Sid used to mention it, it was always the reverse order: mind, consciousness, and thought, and so that's why thought is in third place here. Of course, they're all one at the deepest of levels, and in that regard, it is thought that communicates to us regarding consciousness and mind. And without thought, we wouldn't. How would we express ourselves? How would we express the truth of these three principles? It's through our thoughts that we do that. That's thought's part of it. So without thought, just as without consciousness or mind, the other two do not exist. So that's in a way that the deepest purpose of thought, to enlighten us, to put what we're learning in our form of communicating it. We get it in feeling, but how do we talk about it? We go into thought. So that's an incredibly important purpose of thought. And of course, thought is a gift that we're born with, that we use to try to work our way through life, at whatever level we do it. It's through thought that we perceive and load up our biocomputers with information, trying to understand life, trying to understand what we're doing here and where we're going here. That being said, that's the part referring to it, which we perhaps will come to later, the oneness of all things. Thought is, in fact, not separate. Thought is not purely an intellectual game that goes on. Thought is divine. Thought is spiritual. And we have the power over thought. We hold the power of thought. And how do we exercise it? Until we realize our power, we are going willy-nilly. Once we realize our power, then we are able to eliminate mental illness for ourselves, reduce it at least, eliminate it, sure. And we are able to create mental health for ourselves. And it's so simple. It's all about positive and negative thinking. It's so simple. When we're in negative thinking, we're heading towards mental illness. We're heading towards depression. We're heading towards anxiety. We're heading towards anger. We're heading towards all of these, as Sid would put it, psychological viruses. We're indulging in contaminated thinking. Another word for that is pessimistic thinking. On the other hand, it's as simple as changing our thoughts to stop feeding those negative thoughts, which create negative feelings, and go to the positive, optimistic thoughts, optimistic feelings, feelings of confidence, feelings of kindness, feelings of joy. Ultimately, the purest of all thoughts are the thoughts of the beauty of the principles. That's the thoughts of truth. And the ultimate thought in that is something that I just can't stop thinking about. It's love. We simplify it down to love. There he goes again, talking about love. I can't help it. Would I deny it? I'm not that crazy. No, not. And, really, it is that simple, folks. What is our power? Our power is to change our mind. Our power is to let go of the negativity, not feed it, not give it credibility. It's illusionary. And part and parcel with that negativity as we get into it, and we're into a place where we may be asking therapists for help or psychologists for help or psychiatrists or some friend or whatever. We give up our power. We're in charge. We have the power. Nobody else has the power. Helpers, psychologists, psychiatrists, loving friends, even when they see the component that's missing, we can only share metaphors in an attempt to draw another person into health. But it's still their power, our power, individually, to take that step, to jump that gap, to accept it. But it's not difficult. In fact, we do it many times, and everybody's doing it many times without realizing that they're exercising that. But you can drop it. You can drop it. A parent can say to their child, drop it, give it up. I want you to be happy. I don't want to hear any more complaining. And the child will often drop it. And they go, and if the child can drop it, if you can accept that, I'm sure we've all seen children drop it. We dropped it ourselves, not knowing that we were exercising the superpower. Then that's what we do. Just that. Change your mind. That's what happens sometimes when you apologize for something. You're conceding that you've been misthinking and you make the correction. And that's a beautiful thing that we've given ourselves, that we learn, is we can change our mind. And when we do it sincerely, part of that might be to say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. And when you mean it, you won't do it again. It's that simple. That simple. Apologize to yourself. You deserve it. How powerful is that? Imagine if that could be just give it away. Give it away. How about accepting it and using it? or I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to give you all a treat. I hope you see it that way. I've written a number of poems, most of them about 20 years ago or even more. Some of these were written 30 years ago, very, very rarely shared. But I've got one. And this is a beautiful book. I want to show you the picture at the beginning of this chapter. This is a Hawaiian book. It's the best Hawaiian history book there is because it's written by Hawaiians. You see this sketch here? He's holding his bowl. That's the bowl of light. And this is from a certain ohana on Molokai in Hawaii. And one of the few ohanas that have really shared outside of their clan. Ohana is clan. And I'll just read a little bit of the preamble, and it really explains the poem that I wrote about this. And this very concept has been, I've heard it, seen it shared in 3P by people from Hawaii. So they picked it up someplace. So in this ohana, this is one of the elders that wrote this. Each child born has at birth a bowl of perfect light. If he tends his light, it will grow in strength and he can do all things. Swim with the shark, fly with the birds, know and understand all things. If, however, he becomes envious or jealous, he drops a stone into his bowl of light and some of the light goes out. Light and the stone cannot hold the same space. If he continues to put stones in the bowl of light, the light will go out and he will become a stone. Stone does not grow, nor does it move. If at any time he tires of being a stone, all he needs to do is turn that bowl upside down and the stones will fall away and the light will grow once more. And that's a poem right there. But anyway, inspired by that, probably 30 years ago, in this shabby, falling apart mock-up of the book, I have this one. There's a beautiful picture that goes with it. This is called The Light Keepers. It's a sonnet. The Light Keepers. We are the keepers of the sacred light. Our task is simple. Keep it fed with fuel. It thrives on thoughts of love and what feels right. So, thinking is our job. Our minds are tool. But sometimes we take thoughts for our own use, forgetting that the light needs us to shine. These thoughts don't help. They're merely thought abuse and cause the glow to sputter and decline. At any time, we all can cleanse the flame by taking everything that we regret, the jealousy, the pride, the hate, the blame, and dropping them away without a fret. When freed of guilty burdens and their strife, our thoughts light up and we can lighten life. I love writing poetry and I really loved writing that poem. And I love sharing it with you. This is the first one that I've done any writing about trying to figure out thought. Of course, you could go straight to the source, the missing link. That's where it's explained and explained or shared and shared. So one of the phrases that I put down, and I don't think it's in the missing link, but it's in the community, the purity of thought. What's the purity of thought? The purest thoughts are the thoughts that explain the three principles. In other words, the purest thoughts are the thoughts of pure truth. And amongst all those pure truth, all that pure truth thinking, the purest are the one. Thoughts are all creating feelings, by the way. And the purest feelings come from the purest thoughts. And the purest thought is the simplest thought. And that's the one that is spelled Love. Another very pure thought is the simplest way to boil down being. It's the verb to be. And where are we when we're being? When are we when we're being? We're in the now. Sometimes we're in the now, we don't know. It doesn't matter if we know or not, because we're in a space of joy or bliss. Maybe later we'll think, God, that was a now. Wonderful, wonderful. How wonderful to be in the now without thinking. Thoughtless. Almost. There's always going to be a vestige, but just being charged with energy in the moment. That is when our consciousness is growing. You might say at breakneck speed, faster than the speed of light. So each one of us, through our own thinking machines, create reality. Sounds crazy, but it's not. That's what's going on. And there is a conglomerate of realities, billions of them. They're all separate. They're all created by who's ever doing the thinking. I guess another word for these realities as well as illusion. They're all illusions. If we can say that with joy and not like whoops. Yeah. It's like living in a dream. We're the dreamers. And being dreamers, we can rewrite the story instantly. We can change the setting. We can come into another location. We can have other characters. We can have other situations just like that. Sid has said, you're actually learning more in a dream than when you're in our so-called reality. Because of that, if you can get the realization that you're the dreamer. A nightmare is a dream you're creating and you don't know that you have that power. There's nothing to be, nothing to be feared. You're creating it. Change your mind, change your show, switch the channel. Shortly after we met him, which is about a year, he talked a little bit about he was having this dream, this recurring dream, which I believe he had as well before his enlightenment. But at that point, it was a nightmare. And it was the one of fear of falling. He would, like prior to his knowledge, it would be like to wake up in a cold sweat or something to avoid it. And after his experience, realizing he was a dreamer, he embraced the fall. He entered it. He dove into it. And it turned into incredible joy. The result was beauty, however it would be, colors, beauty, ecstasy. And he said, I can hardly wait to go to sleep at night now and have that dream. How about it? That's the way. That's our power. Whatever nightmare we think we're in, whatever it is that we're afraid of tomorrow, or this or that situation, they're just gossamer. Drop the feelings of fear, drop the feelings of something that might happen, creating it yourself within your own, rules that you want to have. Just let it go. Just let it go. There's nothing to fear. It won't appear. It'll never be what you think it is. You may try to create it that way, and you may have, be in the middle of being confused, but go to clarity. Realize what you're doing. We are all empowered. There's nothing for any of us to fear. Fear is always happening in a moment where we're creating a fear. Turn around, create happiness, create calmness, create a good feeling. We're all perfect. Go to the love. Feel the love. Feel the kindness. Live up to who you really are. Help people. Help people you love. Help anyone unconditionally. But there is a point to this understanding that it's all separate realities, because this allows you to go to forgiveness, to go to understanding of others um, who don't have that wisdom that you have, that we have. Steer clear of judging. Steer clear of blaming others. Steer clear of giving your power away to somebody who is in a distorted illusion, as you are. But that's what allows you to go to understanding in certain situations, which pretty well all of us encounter. That allows forgiveness. Separate realities. They don't see what you see. We're all in our own level of consciousness. And we can't force them to be in a different, higher level of consciousness. We can't make it happen. In fact, we're more than likely adding fuel to their fire. Unless they're asking for help. And then we all have that wisdom. It's what I just told you. Shared with you, I hope. We're all in charge of our own reality. That's what we need to share. Don't blame the news. Don't blame the government. Don't blame the other guy next door. Don't blame your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, others in your world. You can be happy anyway. And that's the best way to share and help. To go to your best place. There's sort of one last thing I want to touch on, and that's the harmony of thought. I think earlier when, episode 1, it was, the harmony of the two minds, the personal mind and the universal mind. And we can harmonize with that by doing a bit of a reboot. And by that, I mean slowing down your intellect, your intellectual thoughts. We're never going to stop them, but slow them down and tune in to the silence and let mind reach you. And it does. And you pick up that thinking. That's the harmonious thinking. That's thinking in harmony with mind, big mind. The universal mind, the mind of all things. The mind that is connected to your soul. Via your soul, the information comes. It sinks into your little mind, your personal mind. And your understanding develops. our understanding develops. That's how it's been working for me. That's how it works for all of us. That's how it's been working for everybody in the room. We don't always know it. We don't always recognize it. We don't always celebrate it. But it is by recognizing it, celebrating it, sharing it, that we fulfill the true purpose of our journey. The world is waiting for us. We're key players. It just happens. It's just our luck. It's just our our bravery in getting it. It's whatever drew us to the three principles and being sharers. We don't have to, because we have free will. But if we recognize that we have free will, and we recognize the power of the different choices, there's only two. One involves proving we're different and getting stuck. Another involves accepting that we're one and flying free. So, anybody have anything they would like to share?
Uh, First of all, thank you very much, Jim. It was wonderful. I loved it. I love thoughts. And I've got something from the book, The Missing Link, that I want to share. Thought is the missing link between mental sickness and mental health. Thought is also the missing link between happiness and sadness. Your personal mind activates your thoughts and makes them good or bad. You have no control over what others think, but you do have the power to control what you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Curran. I would like to add one more thing, and it's
Yes, please.
something from Sid as well. It's just where it is, or that, and that is, it's also the missing link between the intellect and the spiritual. It's a missing link that jumps across that gap, like a spark jumping across a spark plug. That's also another application of that phrase, the missing link. Anybody else?
Well, I'll start, say something, but I don't know what to say after all this, but yeah. Yeah, it's nice the way you're describing it, Explaining is not a better word,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't sometimes think about those things and how they work, and they work regardless of yourself, but
Yes.
but but to see how you could make it work better, Or- yeah. But
Thanks so much,
wonderful.
Patrice. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Comment. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Thanks, Jim. Mm.
Can I say something, Jim? Hi, it's Wendy. Hi. When you were talking about dreaming, it was just a few months ago that something I saw, and when I first saw it, I didn't like it. So what it was, someone said something to me, and someone says something, and you just see what you see, and I said, "Do you mean?" And so they said something about when we're asleep and dreaming, and what I saw very clearly was that when I have to close my eyes, when I am asleep and I'm dreaming and I'm having nice dreams, and I might have scary dreams, and it's all mind conscious thought created while I'm sleeping, and then the moment I wake up, I continue to do the same. And I saw that. I really, really, and it scared me because I hadn't seen life like that before. So the life I had, it was okay since learning the principles just over 2 years ago, but it was showing me I could see deeper and see more. And it was like, but my old life, although it might not have been so good, I had an attachment to it. And so I was suddenly aware that I had this awareness that awake, I was just doing the same thing throughout every moment throughout my day, and it unsettled me. And it took me a couple of weeks, and the best I knew was that it was going to be okay. And so I was walking around. I mean, I love seeing nature and looking at the trees, but I was walking around thinking, whoa, I'm awake and dreaming. And then I had another level to that about a month after, which was sometimes I get insecure. I can get a bit shy or a bit self-conscious sometimes. And that bugged me. And then I saw that, so, that's just dreamlike, thought created. And I could see it almost like I was watching a scary movie, which some enjoy. So just knowing that I was dreaming that and kind of making that reality up, I could almost laugh at it if I wanted to.
Wendy, thanks so much for sharing that. And I've come across the idea of being unsettled by the new reality that you're seeing and seeing deeper than you expected, and it being in the unfamiliar. I have seen people in that space before. One of them was my late wife when she first started clicking into the power, of listening to Sid. And she talked about it with Sid, and his response was just relax. It's just getting used to the energy.
Yes.
You're feeling, deeper energy, and it is a new thing.
It was the best I knew that I would be okay.
Yeah.
Just settle, and that was it. And it didn't scare me beyond. I just knew I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I can laugh at it now. And
sure.
and so it was nice. And then also seeing insecurity. Well,
sure.
Okay, it doesn't feel nice, but I can almost laugh at it. And if I wanted to, I could do lots of things with it. So that was quite interesting for me.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
And it's
thank
an
you.
interesting story for all of us. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
That's a very interesting topic when you're coming into this talks about dream. We are the dreamer, and thank you, by the way, Wendy. That was a lovely sharing, and as always, Jim, you really share from love. You share from your heart, and I have said it before, but I was like, keep moving in that direction. That's awesome to hear, and that's awesome to be a part of it. And I can what I see in my life was like everybody has a made up story. What's your comfort zone or your stone cliff, or and that's just a dream. And last week, I don't know when, but a couple of days ago, that dream just puff disappeared because it was just a dream. And my first reaction to that was, I have no comfort zone or stone cliff to stone. But it's come to me very, very quickly that you don't have to be afraid. You don't need in a stone cliff.
That's right.
The whole earth is a stone cliff. The whole world and the whole world beyond our life here in form. There's no cliff. There's no comfort zone. Only in your intellectual mind.
That's right.
Only in your personal mind.
Yeah.
And that's just disappeared for me. And I can relate to Wendy that first you are a little bit scared, or a lot of scaring yourself, like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
But that's also thoughts from your personal mind that can understand that beautiful just happened.
Yeah.
That was so I can relate to what Wendy say, and I seen it in my unique way. So that's
wonderful. Very
what I
good.
want to share.
A very nice share. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for your presence, and for sharing.
Okay, Jim, I have a question, and that is from Mrs. Vijayalata. She's asking how to practice thoughts in harmony in our daily life.
Well, go to the quiet, and the thoughts that come will be related to you through your personal mind. And those thoughts are the harmonious thoughts. And the more you get used to that, the more we get used to that, the more we grow, and the easier it gets. That's the simplest way to, to convey that. And it's available, but you have to open to it. You have to trust it. You have to practice a little bit, and it doesn't have to happen in the moment necessarily. You don't, you might think, well, I had something I wanted answered. I hope would be answered, and I don't seem to have it yet. And then what you do is you go on and you just kind of rest with it. And you maybe a few hours later or a day later, it will pop in, and you'll recognize it. And then you will pop into that harmony that we're talking about. It's the oneness of your thinking with the messages that come in through your soul, which is part of it's like it's your conduit in to the nothingness.
What I would like to add right now is that as we see in other teachings, there are affirmations, meditation, and positive thinking. So it's not a practice or any action that you have to take consciously. It is about realizing that they are just thoughts and letting them pass, since they are neutral on their own. They are transient on their own, and allowing these divine thoughts to guide you. They will put your life in harmony. Yes. Oh,
Beautiful.
yes. Okay. Anybody else with any question?
Hey, Jim. Mika here.
Hi,
Am
Mika.
Hi. I've really been enjoying this. Thank you so much for this offering. I was introduced to the principles probably close to about 3 years ago now through Michael Neal,
Mhm.
who I've done numerous workshops with, and also gotten involved with the 3PG community some.
Mhm.
But I would say that it's telling you my internet's unstable, so hopefully I'll stay on. I've sort of been a soul seeker for most of my life. So there's a lot of things I've come across on my journey that I've learned from and grown from. But I have to say that when I came across the principles, what was so refreshing and really landed for me was that it's both so simple and profound,
Mhm.
and that there's no rules, there's no instructions, there's no dogma. It's just, as Michael would say, it's not a prescription, it's a description, maybe Sid said that too, I don't know, but I heard it from Michael. But that really landed for me. And I really feel like I can see the effects, like it just keeps layers and layers that just keep coming off, and it just continues to go deeper and deeper, where it becomes so organic in the way that I feel and live and experience life as it comes to me. Saying that, I spend a certain amount of time like interacting on social media and things like that, and like I have one person who's a local person, but mainly a friend through social media, and I see, like, I understand that there's a lot of concern about what's going on in the world and what's going on in the States, and the division and the angst and money, all of the things.
Mhm.
And it's like I can see people who are just so adamant of staying in this mindset of the anxiety.
Yeah.
And, I find that when I sort of offer, like, we can care about those things, but that doesn't mean that we have to be in the anxiety in our daily life.
Sure.
Like, it's not helpful. And we don't get the wisdom from that anxiety. We get it from that calm space. But I would love it if you had anything to offer in terms of, if you encounter that with people in your world, how do you respond?
Well, I do not encounter that with people in my world. I have to go to my computer and seek it out. And that I do waste my time doing that on occasion, and to no good result. So yes, it seems irresponsible in a way, not being out there trying to change the world. But the world will only change, one soul at a time, one person at a time. Everyone we touch, if we can give the gift of gaining in consciousness and deepening our understanding that we are responsible, then that example is really all we have. Otherwise, you would become involved in trying to prove something, trying to change people, and we've got to focus on changing ourselves. It's like the idea of physician, heal thyself. no, that's pretty well all I have to offer. There can be lots of judgments going on about that position, but it works for me. And my honest take on it is, I'm not going to change the world, but I am here offering my highest truth. It's going out on a video. It'll be there for others to access should they be ready or interested. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to share unconditionally. It's like jumping off a cliff to do one of these, in a way. At least for me, it is. This morning, I was like, wow, I only got about 4 hours sleep last night. But believe it or not, I was thinking beautiful things. I was thinking ahead to this with, well, I could say that. Well, I could say that. Well, I could say that. When I got in the room, I had a few notes, and I have referred to them a couple of times. But basically, it was the preparation that went on lying in bed. And, at first when I woke up, I thought, no, you're going to be too tired to go do this, you crazy, but I'm not. I also had some faith that I would step into the abyss and that I would be all right, and beautiful opportunities to share from the privileged position that I'm in. We're all in a privileged position, by the way. But it's my webinar. So, that puts me there. It's like teaching, when I was a teacher, we're all there in the room together, but mine's the desk, and I have that responsibility of guiding. So it is quite similar. What makes me think I can guide? I can only say I'm doing it for selfish purposes. I want to grow. And I know the way to grow is to share. And at certain stages, I may be doing something totally different. And that'll be, my opportunity to grow in that direction. But now, it's come out as I'm talking about mind. It came out through silence and an inspiration. And I, it's like you're in a football game and you get a long pass and you're running out there and you reach up and grab the ball. It's a thrill. So, common sense says to me, and Mr. Banks many times said the way to grow is to share. And he didn't insist that you do it in any specific format or form, including you could share with yourself. And that's a hard one to get your head around. How the hell do I share with myself? I just think to myself. Yeah, you feel good. You allow yourself to feel better and better. You allow yourself to think kind, loving thoughts. You don't allow yourself to think insecure thoughts. That sort of thing. Sharing. You might share in a way where you help somebody, put their groceries in their car, or you help a neighbor. You're not talking 3P. You're not trying to, change their level of consciousness. You're just sharing that in the appropriate way for the moment. I mean, that would be Sid. He wasn't out there sharing, talking, writing all the time. In fact, he wanted balance in his life. He wanted to share, if he got a creative idea, he would manifest it. He had, he was living in a nice place and he had an area that could be used as a little bit of a meadow. And he got the inspiration. I'd love to have horses in there. That would be so beautiful to drive by and have some horses. But he didn't want to buy horses. He didn't want to look after horses, mind horses, etc. But he created a corral, and he invited his neighbor to bring his horses over to, share the pasture. So that was his. And I remember it was at a talk when I hadn't seen Sid for months. I came to Vancouver to the talk, and Richmond or somewhere, and he came down the aisle and shook hands, and we talked a little bit, and then he told me about the chorale. That was what was fun for him. That was what he wanted to share on that level. How to manifest the beauty that you see. He built a bridge, a little a curved bridge, almost like a Japanese style bridge or something, on his property on Salt Spring. It was simply for the pleasure of building it and for the vision of it when it was complete. A creative thing, indulging in creative thinking and having it there. And people in those days that came from all over the world were amazed at the beauty of the home that he had created. And it wasn't something, hiring some kind of, designer or any of that stuff. It was simply, I'd love to see that, he had a septic field, he planted a cherry tree. Simple as that, he loved that cherry tree. Whatever, he loved dressing his world. And that's a whole other thing from the deep sharing, but it was a beautiful thing that actually emanated beauty for those who could see it, who were ready. So that's really it. Be sharing. If you, I believe Dickon Bettinger and maybe it was Michael Neal, I've heard, or another partner, actually addressed a group of Ukrainians, regarding their world and being at war right now. Well, that is an incredibly beautiful thing to do. That is deep sharing, and that is assuming that these are people that are responsive. Having to do it without love. I mean, excuse me, with total love, but without judgment, and without getting into the nitty gritty of violent this or how terrible it is. It's just it is their reality. When Sid was 2 weeks away from passing, he invited a family, an Israeli family, to Salt Spring. They came over. One of our friends met them at the plane, brought them to Sid's. I'm not sure if he was in bed at the time or whether he made it out of bed, but he was there to share with these warriors. They had all been in the military and they had all lost limbs, both the parents, and I believe there were two of their children, young men. And, so he was willing to address it in the loving way for people who were receptive and so open that they would come. They had heard about Sid. I don't know whether he had met them before or not, but for him, it actually revived him for a short period of time. He rose to the occasion. And so it's like that. But if you want an opportunity like that, or similar, a way for you to participate, then it needs to be something like that, where it comes to you, you see it, and you step up to it, and you feel like that's a kind of a calling. But the level of chaos, judgment, whose fault is it? What are they doing now? All of the killing, I can't stand it. All valid, but we do have a choice. And if it tears you apart inside, it's the wrong choice.
All right. So since we are running out of time, Jim, I have two questions to ask you, and I want you to make it quick. Both questions are from Thomas. And the first one is, what's the highest insight a human can have?
The highest insight a human can have is enlightenment, to step into enlightenment. And we're all one thought away from that insight, but it seems like it is lifetimes away. But that doesn't mean it is. It's only one thought. That's what I hear. That's the way Sid conveyed it.
Okay. And how many people have you seen who have had it?
One.
the source, Sydney Banks.
What a privilege.
What a privilege. Yes.
You know, I mean, how many of us on the planet have come across an enlightened being? So, you know, it's that. I've only seen the one. And by the way, I'm not looking for any more.
Okay.
Because I'm getting everything that I need to conduct my journey, way more than I can, you know, than I accept. I think that I will grow to even in this lifetime. So I'm not about to go out searching.
Wonderful. All right. So last question, then we'll play Dreamhouse tapes. So it's not the end of the session, so please don't leave. And here's the question. That is, what is the fastest way to grow spiritually?
Well, to get that thought, you know, to get insights. That's the simple, you know, the direct truth answer. What am I doing? I'm sharing, and that's what our, you know, our guide said, advocated. And one way he would say it, well, you've absorbed what you can absorb. You've taken in all you can in terms of hearing truth, searching. Now it's time to. It's like a jug that's full. You're not going to get any more in there because you're full now. So your job is to share the wine, pour the glasses, give it out, open up some space inside for more, you know, and automatically it will fill. It's like an artesian well. It just bubbles up.
Beautiful.
So that's, you know, that's that.
Yeah. I was listening to Sid's tape, and he was saying something like sharing is growing. When you hold something to yourself, you just can't keep it to yourself.
That's right.
Okay, sharing is
Almost
growing.
like you haven't got it. If you're holding it to yourself, it's like you don't really have it because
Exactly.
you're holding it. You know, you've missed the idea that you're there to share.
Yeah. Ego holds and the soul shares. Wonderful. All right. Anybody else with any question to ask Jim? All right. All good. Now I will ask Jim to tell us something about Trima and then play her tapes.
Yes, indeed. This is a great tape. I won't spend long. You know, most of us have heard about Dreama. She was a friend of ours, somebody that knew Sid, somebody that had grown in this understanding and had really been brave enough in early times to apply it to her job. And she got some incredible results. And when she was, she had not, you know, she always shared. She shared in her work, of course. She was helping people. She was in the helping profession, nursing, and but because she knew she was leaving, she asked me as a friend and as somebody who had the equipment to do a tape and edit it to assist her. And so I did that, and we have the tape, and we're going to play 2 short chapters. It'll be probably altogether not much more than 10 minutes. But there's a great story here. So let's tune into it and listen.
Hope and applications to patients. After returning to Florida, I worked on a research project with the University of Miami with patients who had head and neck cancer stage 3 and 4. Although it was a research project looking at stress and nutrition, my real reason for taking the job was to see if I could help patients experience less stress, more hope, and peace of mind by applying and teaching the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. Prior to accepting the job, I talked to the 2 research directors. They were both very well-published physicians and very caring people. When they heard my idea, they smiled and said that whatever I could do with the patients would surely be helpful, but not to expect too much, as the patients were all veterans and may not be open to help of this kind. In fact, I may find that some were angry and very difficult to work with. This didn't discourage me, as I'd seen the results of this in my own life and that of my family. I'd moved from being sad and overwhelmed in my life to being happy and positive more of the time. I'd also seen the results of this understanding on other staff and their ability to work together and give better patient care. My question was simple. Could this help across the board with patients and their families, regardless of their circumstances? So I was glad when they told me it would be a challenge. To me, this meant it was a true test of the impact this understanding could have. My first duty was to get the approval of the chief resident, Dr. Mike. It was made clear this would be no easy task. Dr. Mike was open to the basic research project, as he saw it would be beneficial to his patients. As he listened to my project, I wasn't sure what was going through his mind. When I finished, he simply said, "Before you do anything, I want you to talk to Fred Thomas. He's an outpatient, but we'll be here tomorrow. He can get back with me." Wow, I had no idea why he wanted me to talk with Fred Thomas, but I was happy he didn't turn me down. All I knew was that Fred had stage 3 or 4 head and neck cancer, was no longer a patient in the hospital. The next day, I saw this wonderful man who, though it was difficult to talk as he had had surgery that left his face disfigured, he had a radiant smile that made you pass the outer form to the beautiful person inside. He was very comfortable greeting me and suggested we go someplace to talk. As we sat in a quiet corner of the hospital, Fred began to share his experience. Before I had cancer, I missed most of my life. I was always thinking and worrying about the future, which didn't even exist, or lost in the past, which is now only a memory. When I was told about my cancer, my world as I knew it stopped. I realized I'd missed living in the present moment, the only thing that truly exists. I began to enjoy things I never had time for, like nature, raising roses, and people. I would take walks and pass out my roses to my neighbors. One day during a routine checkup, my chest x-ray showed a suspicious area, and I was called to schedule a repeat. My thinking started to go crazy, as my worst fear was to have metastasis somewhere. At that moment, I was to experience the most important choice of my life: to get lost in the fears of metastatic disease, or hand out my roses to my neighbors. I decided to do the latter, and I chose not to think or spend much time lost in my fears. The next day, I returned for my repeat chest x-ray. I waited for the results in the waiting room. I watched the clock and then tried to distract my thinking by reading. When the doctor came out, he had a big smile on his face. I'm not sure what we saw on the first x-ray, but this one is perfectly clear. Tears of joy ran down my face. I went back home to continue to care for my roses and hand them out. I guess the doctors like me to share my story, as it gives people hope. It shows them the importance of focusing your thinking on the positive, regardless of the circumstances you may be going through. After hearing Fred talk, I was very touched and grateful for the opportunity to meet such a wonderful man. All I wanted to do was to assist other patients to shift their thinking in the midst of a crisis. My meeting with Dr. Mike went extremely well. I expressed my gratitude for introducing me to Fred and the wisdom he had shared with me. I started my project the following Monday. Instead of the patients being resistant to learning the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, they were extremely open. These men started off frustrated and depressed, as they had been through a lot of pain and uncertainty. There was a general feeling of hopelessness, with little, if any, family support. Most of the patients had laryngectomies, so they could no longer communicate through talking, but only through writing. One day, after being on the project for about 3 months, Big John, a man with a lot of inner strength and wisdom, approached me with a big smile. He wrote, "Does your boss know what you're doing?" I just smiled and said, I don't know. I wasn't quite sure what he meant. He looked deep into my eyes and wrote, "He needs to know. Bring him here so we can meet with him and share how our lives have changed." Wow. I was so touched by this man. I had tears in my eyes. I found my boss, and together we went back to meet these men. They were all smiling, but one patient named James. He looked very upset. He wrote me the night nurse had yelled at him for watching TV too late. Even though this happened hours ago, he still felt hurt that she had treated him with such harshness. He didn't sleep at all last night. I felt sad that the nurse had been so insensitive to this beautiful man. The TV program was over 15 minutes after lights out, and his roommate didn't mind staying up late. I realized our inability to be compassionate and understanding as care providers affects the health and well-being of our patients to a deeper degree than we may realize. After James finished talking, Big John took the lead and started sharing through his writing how differently his experience of life was since our sessions. He then wrote, "I know it sounds crazy, but I'm happier now than before I had cancer." The rest of the men shared similar thoughts and feelings. My boss simply smiled and shook their hands. Walking down the hall, he turned to me and said, "Don't you recognize denial when you see it?" At first, I couldn't believe what he said. And then I realized he could not conceive and therefore could not believe such a shift or change in someone's thinking or consciousness. So he was trying to label it with something familiar. He looked to me for my response. I just smiled, realizing that he did not understand at this time what had occurred. But then I turned to him in a playful way and said, "If that's denial, let's teach it to the night staff." Thought kept burning in my head. What would a unit look like if we could not only teach the principles of mental health, but model it for our staff? If you helped only one staff member function more of the time from a more balanced state of mental health, then you would be helping every patient they came in contact with and each of their families. The idea was powerful. Before moving on to the next step, I'd like to take some time to review points that have proven helpful to me. The feeling you exchange with your patient is probably the most important ingredient in facilitating a change from a stressful state to a more positive, calmer state. This requires that the caregiver is functioning from a state of love and compassion, and that is quite different from one of commiseration or judgment. It is important to gently help the patient to be in the present and not to be caught up in thoughts and worries about the past or the future. Being in the now becomes easier as we learn to quiet our thinking down. There's no magical way to do this. A lot of people have tried meditation, yoga, music, working in the garden, walks on the beach. It varies with the situation and the patient. Each person finds what works for him or her. But the goal is to quiet the mind and thinking. Remember, the patient may be caught up in a negative, thought-created reality. But if they try to think their way out, they will probably use the same thoughts that created the problem, and it will create a downward spiral. As people quiet down their thinking, they are able to access their own wisdom. This is when they can have insights or sights from within. From this level of understanding, they can better see how to deal with their situation from a healthier, more positive perspective. Don't forget the basic needs of the patient: food, rest, and pain relief. If patients aren't sleeping right, they aren't eating properly, they're not getting relief from pain, it will affect their physical and mental health. It is important that the caregiver has to be open to seeing change in patients and not develop a fixed way of seeing them. In other words, you've got to keep an open mind and realize that they're changing moment to moment. And as you see the change, point it out. Talk about it. Talk about how the mind and body are always moving towards a state of health, and that helps them reach that state. Last but not least, include the family in any way you can. They're going through their own pain, their own fear. The more we include them in the situation of the patient, the more we help that patient support system and the family as a unit.
Wonderful. I loved it. I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I would like to add something. When she was saying that the patients are caught up in their thinking, so the best thing that they can do is they can just be present to the moment. And after that, she said some people like to do meditation, some people like to do yoga, some people like to go out and walk in nature. And I really loved it. So, because mental illness of the patient is in the mind. When the patient is not caught up in the thinking about the future worries and the problems, they're just present. And this is when the healing happens. The healing of the mind, thus the healing of the body. Wonderful. Jim, would you like to add something?
Not really, Karen. You summed it right up beautifully. Great comment.
Thank you. All right. So can I ask Debbie to add something?
This has just been so beautiful. And the thing that I liked about this was, I mean, first of all, listening to Jim, you know, we experience this quiet of mind, you know, like you just fall into that. And I think when I have, you know, tried to share, that has been a challenge for me with that understanding of, you know, going to a quiet mind, because I think so many people are struggling with that, you know, kind of like what Mika had said too, you know, I mean, it's just this, you know, out there, no matter what it is, if it's the news or it's just their own situation or illness or whatever. And I think when I first started hearing about the 3 principles, like when someone would, you know, quiet your mind, fall into that, I understood that. But then when I would try to talk to other people about it, you know, without giving them something to do, a practice or whatever, I really struggled with that. And so over the years, I've just like, do you meditate? Well, that's what it's like. Do you garden, you know, picking the roses or whatever, that, you know, or whatever when you're caught up. So to hear Dreama explain that was part of her instruction, and that it just, yeah, it was confirming and nice to hear. People haven't said that in the past. It's just, again, the reality or how I heard things. I didn't hear that as clearly in the past. So it's just, I'm awakening to that more and more. So I just really appreciate this and this community, you know, to bring this all up. You see the power of the sharing, you know, and I think one other thing just quickly is the what I'm learning is not to underestimate the power of an insight and how that can change a person. You know, as you said, Jim, just one thought away. And when we see so many people suffering, it just can become so overwhelming. How do we share this? How do you know, if it's your neighbor or whoever, but to know that that's kind of what happened to me at some level, you know, that one thought can change that. And just kind of reminds you of like Gandhi, you know, be the change that you want to see in the world. You know, I think that's a great analogy with this, that, you know, when we can change, then somebody wants to be with us more, and maybe in how we the groceries or whatever, that changes. and gives us maybe another insight in how to share this way. We look at social media sometimes as that's what's spreading a virus. But is it really? Could it also be another way? And we're creating a different energy and space in our way. So I don't know, just some thoughts, and just so grateful to be here today with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else with any question about Dreama? All right. So that's all. All right, Jim, before we play a set step, I want you to tell us something about our next episode, our special guest, and what exactly we're going to be doing in episode number 4, sharing relationship.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank everybody here. You've been incredible. That was a great share, Debbie. And, everybody's presence in the room, you guys are, just so supportive, so great, so back and forth. The synergy of sharing is there, evident, palpable. I can't thank you enough, really. Regarding the 4th episode, I can't tell you too much about it. I don't know where it's going to go myself. The name of it is Sharing Relationships. So we have that as a beginning, and there will be another share from Dreama, and there will be another share from Sid. But during the talk part, the beginning part, it won't be so much me. First of all, I'll be sharing our portion of it with Roz, and the two of us will contribute a fairly short share, because we have invited some friends, and they're very special people. Some of them will be, sharing in this kind of a format for the very first time. But they've all been exposed to Sid. So it's a chance to mingle. And I don't know what they're going to say. I don't think they do. I'm hoping, I'm sure it will be good. And on top of that, I would love everybody in the room to be having a wonderful feeling together, a wonderful time together. And as I said to one of them, as I was inviting them, let's party. So I don't know what that'll be like, but the response I got back was a big lift, a big feeling of elation. So who knows? I know they're great guys, and girls, ladies, and they've had beautiful relationships. And it's rather than going into the pitfalls of a relationship, and even getting deep into the other parts of it, it's a matter of getting a great feeling going. And so it's ostensibly it is how does the 3 principles help you folks develop a long-lasting relationship that's positive. And we'll see where it is. As I say, we'll see where it all goes. It's an adventure. But I would dare say the feeling will be right up there, and anybody who comes along and wants to share with us will be benefiting just as we all will. So come along. There's 2 more like this. There's the one on relationships, and the final one is on same issue for seniors. How has 3P helped you navigate the contact sport of life as the aging process kicks in? And Debbie, I hope you're going to be there, because you've got a couple of great stories on this topic, and I'd love you to share them with the crowd. So there we have it, Karen, and I think now we need to move on to how much can you pack into one of these things? We've got Sid Banks now to finish off. Again, it's about 11 minutes, I think it is, Karen, and I believe it's entitled Thought, or it's directly related to what's gone on in the room.
So before we start, I would like to thank Sydney Banks Legacy Foundation for supporting us in using these tapes. And here I present to you City Banks on Thought.
Today, I would like to talk about one of the most powerful things on earth, and that is thought. I'd like to discuss how thought relates to our everyday life, our mental attitude, our outlook on life, a psychological effect it has on us, how society is built on thought, because from the beginning of time, mankind has made laws, rules, regulations, all from his own thought. It's a very, very powerful thing. But when it comes to mental sickness and mental disability, this is where thought really counts. And this is where you'll find one of the main secrets of mental health. Now, mental sickness, mental health. Because a lot of theories nowadays, they take you back in the past and they see it as a damage for life. But in actual fact, all our insecurities, our anxieties, our hostilities, our ambitions, our desires, all these things, many more, all derive from thought. Take an experience from the past, and what you think of that experience comes via a thought. This thought goes into your brain, it gets computed, and it stays there. From then on, you will react to that thought. Therefore, it is only a thought that is controlling your life. It is only a thought that creates insecurity. It is only a thought that makes people feel so insecure, so frightened, so afraid. The feeling of lack of love is thought. The feeling of being unwanted is thought. Everything derives via thought. The strange thing is, thought on its own is really a worthless thing, because thought is merely a vehicle. It's what you mentally put into that thought. Whatever you put into that thought will be delivered because it's yours. Now, if someone is mentally unstable because of a bad experience from the past, it is truly mental suicide to take them back. What they should realize is the power of thought. Because if they can actually see or realize the power of thought, then that mental sickness will go, because it is created from thought. And I'm sure if you try and trace this thought, you'll find it everywhere, because that's what creates alcoholism. Alcoholism isn't a disease. It can't be a disease. Not until after the fact. See, the person can drink and never become an alcoholic. Now, other people take a drink and they go and drink to excess. But they drink to excess for a reason. And this reason, you can be rest assured, is connected to the thought system. Now, they may feel insecure. They may feel afraid of life. They may feel deserted. They may feel that they've been hurt in life, that their life's over, they have no hope. It could be for one of an infinite amount of reasons. The reason doesn't matter why. The matter why is where we're disillusioned, where we go after the reason why and we're going after the fact again. It really doesn't matter why. The fact is that they do feel that way. Now, if they can see the power of thought, it's only a thought. You see, an example would be, one day you're very happy for some reason, doesn't matter the reason. And the next day, or even 5 minutes later, you're unhappy because of a reason. But it's only thought. Happiness is brought from thought. Sadness is brought from thought. Insecurity is brought from thought. Poor me is brought from thought. Good me is brought from thought. It is all thought. And this is what original psychology of all humanity was brought around by thought. Because we live in a thought system. We live in a system, it's a psychological system. Everything is brought around from the psychic, from the thought. And this is where one of the main secrets of mental sickness take place. Because like that alcoholic, he drinks from his thoughts. And these thoughts are never good thoughts. I've never yet met an alcoholic that was drinking because he was happy. He was drinking to try and get happy. Because somewhere within him or her, there was suffering, and there was suffering real bad. And this is where the job of psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists and people that work in these institutes to try and help those people is to try and bring them nice thoughts, to change the thought, not to take them back in the past to go over all the bad thoughts. The bad thoughts is the creator of the sickness. That is what you call alcoholism. When it's your bad thoughts, you're forced into it. If these people are suffering, they need help, and you must help them by a positive manner. You must bring positive thoughts. Sometimes it's very difficult to see this, but once you really look, simplicity itself, because it's all thought. If I go in front of someone to talk to, or a group of people, if I feel insecure, no matter the reason, it's only thought. If I feel secure, that again is only thought. And this is something that anyone who is seeking higher wisdom, this is why they're told they should seek in a positive manner, because again, this is created from a positive thought. And with a positive thought, you cannot be angry, you cannot be jealous, you cannot be spiteful, you cannot be hateful towards yourself or others, because you have a positive thought. If you have a negative thought about your past, a negative experience, and you carry it through time, all that experience that you're carrying is an experience in time. It is no longer a reality, it is only a thought. It's always time to start a new life. But you must start to look, to change and to go into a new life, you must change your thoughts. And people think that's very difficult, but it isn't, because it's simplicity. You simply change thought. You do it all the time. Everybody in the world does it every day. But they don't know they have the control over it, because they don't realize the simplicity of thought. It's what you put in the thought that counts. If you put, poor me, then that's what you will be, poor me. If you keep saying, I am insecure, that's what you will be. Because it's all thought. Now you can't mentally just change a thought as if you were reciting a piece of poetry. It's not like that. What I'm talking about, you have to look and see and actually acknowledge how thought plays a part in your life. Once you acknowledge that, then you will see that from then on, positive thoughts are the way to mental health. Well, I hope this little bit of tape's been of value, and thank you very much.
All right, so that's the end of the show. Thank you very much for coming. Jim, any last words for the audience?
Thanks so much, guys. Just complimenting you on the great contribution that you made by being here and sharing your presence. So aloha. Take care.
Aloha.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Aloha. Mahalo.
That's a good one. Mahalo.
Thank you.